Hey guys, welcome back. This is Mike from Northman Wood and Iron Works, or otherwise known as your teacher, depending who you are, Mr. Shattuck. So anyway, I'm going to be, the last video, we made this handle for a small coffee scoop. It still needs to be descaled and drilled out for rivets and all that fun stuff, but for the most part it's done. And what we're going to do is make a copper bowl for that scoop, similar to this. Again, this one's not polished or anything. This was actually an oddball size. And what we're going to do is make a very similar copper bowl. Normally, I would use one of my swage blocks here. I have multiple swage blocks that I use to make different size bowls. From like 1/4 tablespoon on up, I can actually get really accurate measures there. But in this particular case, I'm going to use, I guess it's a swage block, but it's actually sold as a dapping block. This is a large dapping block. Jewelers and stuff use these quite a bit. But I found that this size makes a really great little coffee scoop if you're grinding your own beans, or a tea scoop, or whatever. But it's just a really nice size. So we're going to go ahead and use that one. And while we do this, I'm going to try to talk to you guys a little bit about some of the metallurgy of copper. Okay? So let's light the forge. And, I dropped it. It's all right, you can back up here.
The cat's under there.
She'll leave soon. What? Dumbass. Oops. Forgot that's on video. Okay. The cat wants to inspect, but I'm afraid she's going to get burned up. Okay, she'll leave as soon as I start hammering. So what we're using today is a piece of this sheet copper. This is 16 gauge sheet copper. That's probably about $130 worth of copper. That's my hand right there. If you guys want to try this, the nice thing about copper is it doesn't take a lot of heat to heat it up and be able to work it. You can actually work it cold to a degree. There does come a point where you'll need to heat it up. The great thing is, if you're looking for a source of copper and you obviously can't afford a giant sheet like that, that sheet was really big when I started, you can actually start with like scrap copper pipe and cut it and unfold it, make it into sheet with heat, and boom, make it into what you want, okay? So, I don't have to heat this right now. I could just work this cold for a little bit. It's still, I mean, you can see I can bend that by hand. It's nice and soft right now. But I find I get it just a little bit better bends on it when I get it hot, and then I'll work it into this dapping block. It'll be a little loud. And normally I'd be wearing ear protection if I was in here on my own, like I said in the last video. But we're going to go ahead and get it hot and work it in there. Especially with a really deep concavity like that, seems to help to really get it down in there without destroying the fibers, and I'll continue from there. I'm just going to set it in the forge just really briefly. Normally if I were to take a piece of, let's say I took a piece of medium or high carbon steel and put it in the forge, and then I pulled it out and put it in the quench bucket, the mag tank, it would actually harden. But with copper, that's how I would anneal it. So if I really wanted to soften this up and not work it hot, I would dip that in the mag tank and I could work it cold and soft. It works kind of opposite with these non-ferrous metals. Non-ferrous metals are metals that don't have iron as a main ingredient. So you notice I'm working the outside edge, and you can really start to see where the edges of that block are. I'm just kind of working the outside all the way around with this raising hammer. And you can see it starting to take shape. And copper is nice and soft. It works really well like this, but it will get to a point, all your non-ferrous metals will get to the point where they work hard. And work hardening, metallurgically speaking, refers to when we have a piece of metal and we put it under stress, and then we take the stress off, and we put it under stress, and then we take the stress off of it. Eventually what it does is it becomes really, really hard. So like if you were to take a regular piece of copper, which I can do really quickly, I think I scrap laying around here somewhere. If I were to take this piece of copper and bend it, okay, boom, I bent that. And now when I try to bend it back, it is really hard to bend back. And if I try to bend it again, it's super hard. That is not moving, okay? It is work hard like a big dog. Now, if I want to make that soft again, just as an example, before we go back to our bowl, I can take this, I can get it hot in the forge, and I've got a really low gas flow. In fact, I'm surprised it hasn't gone out. And when it's nice and hot, I want to get that thing really nice and hot. I'm watching the colors in the copper while it's in the forge. Pretty cool stuff. Smells like what? I'm going to dip that in the mag tank. I quenched it. Now, if I go to that same spot and try to bend it back, whoop, really easy. Super easy. Until it work hardens again. So hopefully that makes sense and you got a little bit of a metallurgy lesson there. So because I don't want this thing to work hard, because what will happen if I keep dapping on this while it's work hard, it's actually going to tear the fibers. I don't want to tear those fibers. I want those fibers nice and supple. And no, I normally don't leave my tongs in the fire. It's just easier right now for demonstration purposes to do that. Come back to my dapping block. Again, working from the outside in, just kind of stretching that metal down in there. It's ugly and gray right now, but when we're all done with it, it's going to be nice and shiny. I know my arm's probably getting in the way there, but I have to spin it around. So that my hammer blows are even around and around and around and around. It's a little monotonous probably watching it. But we're getting there. Now this copper would stretch a lot more without heating it if I wanted to. But again, I just don't like to take that risk. Copper's super expensive. You can see we're getting a really nice dish on there now. But since copper is really expensive and I don't want to mess it all up, it doesn't take much to pop it right back in the forge and heat it up again, okay? Just relaxing those molecules back out. Because what we're doing when we're hammering on this, the way the unit cell structure is in copper with those atoms, they're all locked in a certain alignment, okay? And as we hammer on it, we're kind of pulling them out of alignment, but they still want to stay where they are. It puts a lot of stress in the material. So by heating it, what we do, and especially if we heat it, quench it, but if we get it hot enough, we're annealing the copper. And annealing means that we're relaxing it. So that was like a day at the spa for the copper, right? That was like the royal treatment at the spa for that copper. It's all relaxed, it's got no stress now. Now it's going back to the workaday world, and it's getting a little bit more stress put into it, okay? So at some point, it's gonna want yet another day at the spa just to relax all out. It's really starting to take shape now, but you notice these edges right here and here, they're starting to walk up. They want to wrinkle on me. We don't want that. We don't want those edges to wrinkle, because what'll happen is that wrinkle will travel right down in there. So I'm just gonna really lightly, I'm just gonna bang that back out. I'm gonna flatten those out so those wrinkles don't travel back down. And you can see there's a little bit of one happening right here. I don't want those wrinkles to travel down into our piece. But you can see we've got quite a dome on there. We're almost there. We just got a little bit more to go. I'll do a quick little heat there. And if you don't have a forge, the great thing about copper working is you can use a regular plumber's torch like I lit the forge with to do this. In fact, sometimes if I'm doing small copper pieces, I don't want to waste all the gas in the forge, I will go ahead and do that with a plumber's torch rather than using the forge to heat that